watching and listening to Breakfast with Ellie and Martin. Okay, let's take a look at today's front pages now. The Mail leads with energy bills to fall 450 quid as price cap is slashed. Great news at last.
Yeah, really, really welcome news, but still very expensive, it must be said. Still going to be, I think, several £100 a month, isn't it? £2,000 a year, exactly. The Express says it's a hat trick. Boris and Carrie's pregnancy joy. 3 babies in 3 years.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, so you might want to put down your sausage roll.
Yeah.
And the Mirror's exclusive splash has the solicitor of Fred West's wife, Rose, saying, give up your sick secrets, Rose. That's quite a smorgasbord there, very different stories to go through. So let's go through some more of those stories and the headlines inside the papers now. And joining us are the journalist and author Ella Whelan and the legendary broadcaster Pete Price. Pete, we're going to start with you. As I said, breakfast warning here. We're talking about Boris Johnson procreating and having children, and he's banging out his another one.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else.
I was a bit worried.
I was like, where are we going with that?
Yeah, I've already had my leg slapped, and now be careful how you mention this.
Yeah.
Of course, it's the public's fault, because they got rid of Boris. He's got nothing else to do to have babies, which is great. So this is his 8th baby, his 8th
We
child.
think, yeah.
Or is it?
Oh, we think.
Yeah.
Well, all the papers have said it, but I love it with social media. Carrie Johnson has put it on that she's having the baby. What did we do before social media?
I know.
It's amazing. It's great that he's got these old-fashioned values of big families. I think it's tremendous. It's a pity he didn't have the same values when he was Prime Minister.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't say anything. I can say it.
Well, I think it's lovely that they've had 3 children together. They're very close in age, 3 in 3 years, but they're beautiful, aren't they? They're blonde like their dad. We saw that on social media yesterday, didn't
Let's
we?
hope they've been able to comb their hair properly. But no, I mean, the lady at the end has, when we first met, was pregnant. I love the idea of having children together. If I was a straight man, I would have had the 3 kids together, so they grow up together in that and get it out of the way. Whether she has any say in it or not, if I had a lady in my life. What about you?
Oh God, if my husband's watching, forget about it. Thinking about 2 under 2 and then 3 under 3, I don't know about that. But I mean, you know, on a sort of personal note, it is wonderful news for Carrie, because she obviously had terrible trouble with a miscarriage previously, and this must be something that she really wants, and so congratulations to her. I mean, hopefully she'll be able to, as you know, they are married, she'll be able to get him to be involved in these kids' lives, hopefully, whereas maybe it'll rub off on some of his other kids. But there's, you know, it is unusual actually, because there is at the moment there's a lot of discussion about birth rates, particularly in this country, and about the fact that most people aren't having larger families, so this is perhaps bucking the trend. Might they have something like a nanny or someone to help out? I suspect so.
They've got that lovely big house in Oxfordshire now, haven't they?
I couldn't imagine him changing nappies in a million
Well, he
years.
said he did.
I couldn't imagine
He
it.
says that's what he's doing. He's spending a lot of time.
I had to have a cabinet meeting to organise it.
It's interesting as well. He's 58 years of age. Carrie is now 35. Robert De Niro became a dad. 78 was it? Not quite though, but just goes to show that
How old is he? 58.
58, yeah. Blokes can keep knocking them out, as it were, even though
Knocking them
Wow.
out.
Kids.
Are we
See, now
allowed to say that?
I'd have been told off.
Sorry.
I'd have said that.
I knew this story would make me specifically lower the tone. Must apologise if you're out there having your breakfast. Should we move on? Let's move on now.
Well, I must say though, I got into speaking of social media, I did get into a bit of a deep dive on Carrie Johnson yesterday on Instagram. She's very, very attractive. I don't think I appreciated this before.
All right.
Very attractive and obviously very intelligent as well. So I just thought I'd share that. That's why I spent.
I'm glad you shared that.
Yes.
I would have missed that for the world.
Well, obviously Boris thinks she's attractive. That much we know.
fair.
We should do something with his hair. There must be a hairstylist out there can help the man.
Well, maybe if she's doing the kids' hair, maybe Carrie can turn her attention to her
Boris.
husband.
Oh no, she won't go near him now. She won't want another one straight away.
Right. Well, let's move on to the current Prime Minister now, Ella, and get the violins out, it seems, because Rishi Sunak has been hit by the cost of living crisis. Of course, this is about the Sunday Times rich list out tomorrow, and he's lost a bit of money.
Yeah, I don't know if moving on to something that's no less stomach-turning is whether or not we should have sympathy for the Prime Minister because he's lost millions of pounds, or at least more accurately, his family has. So his wife has shares in the Indian IT company Infosys, which has had some of its shares drop. So she's lost the estimated around, their estimated wealth at the moment now is £529 million, pennies. How will they survive? But it's dropped by several million, and they detail the rich list. He's right up there with, James Dyson, Richard Branson, all the rest of them. And actually, elsewhere in some of the other papers, there's some quotes from Rishi Sunak saying that he believes that Britain has got over the idea of being nasty about rich people.
Yeah, I think it's worth dwelling on that because Labour have been attacking Rishi for his family wealth. Certainly, the non-dom tax thing has become a big attack line. Is it fair? Is it fair to attack people for being wealthy? I mean, because you don't do that in America. Why is it the politics of envy? What is it about the British where you have to knock people for being wealthy? Why shouldn't he be wealthy?
I quite like the British kind of sentiment of, kind of pricking people's egos or pulling people down in that kind of way that we don't do the sort of gauche kind of American style of showing things off. I think that's a quite humbling aspect of sort of the British attitude, which is a good thing. You're right. In the abstract, there's nothing. We need wealthy people to, start up businesses and to inject some, cash flow into the economy. I don't think anyone has a problem with that. But Rishi Sunak has this particular kind of ability to blunder into things and to just display his out of touches. Whether it's sort of taking stage pictures of himself trying to fill up like a Kia Prius or something, and and not being able to use the contactless, wearing these like £1,000 loafers around. All of it and that I think in itself wouldn't be anything to poke fun at other than on a superficial level. But that teamed with, for example, his Chancellor, saying in the papers, there's nothing to see here about the economy, you're just all being too negative. I think that's what riles people and says, well, might it be the fact that you've never had to, metaphorically speaking, wipe your own backside financially, that you don't get what is actually going on here. So I think that's more the issue, which is, they've got him here in the South saying it never rains but it pours. I mean, there is a certain element of I don't know, do people even notice if they lose 200 million?
I think it's very sad that we don't embrace people who are successful in this country. We love them until they become very successful, and then we seem to turn against them. Where in America, they embrace success. And I think it's sad. I know a lot of people, because we've worked in nightclubs all my life, who have made a vast amount of money and started with nothing at all and taken the chance and taken the risk. And I think we should, as Ella said, we need rich people to perform jobs.
Okay, let's move on to a story of yours then, shall we, Pete?
Yeah, this is a great story. This is Twiggy has called for restaurants to ban mobile phones.
In America again, a lot of restaurants now are giving you discount on bills if you check in your phones. I think it was sad. I was in Little Italy the other night, and a wonderful family came in, a big family, fabulous people, and every single one of them, including the grandmother, went on the phones. They ordered, they didn't do anything else, and didn't speak once. I think it's sad because we laugh about it, joke about it, but in fact, if you look, you see these couples out, and all you're doing is on the phone, and you think, Jesus, what am I doing? Get a life. And it's also killing conversation. It's killing children learning from older people, learning through conversation, so that when they go for job interviews, there's big problems. It is a major thing.
Yes, we've just got some breaking news there, Pete, that President Zelensky of Ukraine has landed in Hiroshima. He will be heading to the G7 summit. We'll, of course, bring that to you on GBNEWS, but he has now arrived physically in person in Hiroshima. We were talking about him being involved in some way in a video message at the G7 conference, but he is now appearing in person. We'll bring you some live pictures when we can. So, Pete, back to phones at the dinner table. You think it would be very welcome just to Put them away.
Absolutely, and they maybe should start doing it at home. I remember, because I'm from a different generation to all of you here, but my mother, the television went off. You sat round the table, you had dinner, and you talked about your day. And now people don't do it. And it is a big problem. You know, it really is a big problem, because conversation gives you something to talk about and also helps you build, especially if you're younger, with your life.
Do you keep your phone away when you're at dinner?
I would try to, and if I'm watching something on television I have to put my phone in another room, and I always have my phone on permanently silent. I never ever have my phone ever on.
Okay, Ella, what do you make of this story? Would you welcome no phones at the dinner table?
Yeah, I think it is an issue that we've lost a sense of just also being able to sit in silence. I think it's something that there is, you know, I'm not particularly invested in the kind of, there tends to be a moral panic that goes along with these things, particularly with kids, that, you know, as a parent, you're always told that screen time is like the equivalent of sort of giving your kids drugs. And, you know, any tired parent knows that that's not true. It's a useful tool to get them to shut up while you're, you know, making the dinner or something. But I do think that, you know, having access to instant entertainment all the time has had an effect on our attention span, and it has had an effect on our ability to just sit and think. And even, you know, comfortable silences used to be a thing in families, or when you went out for dinner. I mean, you know, and you'd be able to just enjoy each other's company rather than having to constantly check social media.
And I say to my kids all the time that boredom is good for the brain. When I was a kid, you know, we didn't have like two channels on TV, no mobile phones, no internet, and you're often bored, and so you read, and you use your brain, you had creative thinking, you thought about things, whereas now everything is instant gratification. I think there's a lot to be said for putting the gadgets away and just actually being a bit bored.
I love what Ella just said then. Put them on the screen while you're doing dinner. I am from a generation where you went out and played. You can play for 15 minutes and your mother would go, Peter, your dinner's ready, get in here now.
And maybe that's the way it should be, Pete. Maybe we should just be sending kids out to play instead of being on their phones. You will definitely have a view of that at home. GBNews@gbnews.uk. Ella, Pete, that is time, but you're with us in the next hour.
Goes too fast.
It does. We have too much fun.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks so much, Pete and Ella. Thank you.